from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
I'm Shonda Rhimes. If you've watched Grey's Anatomy or any of my TV shows, then you know I love to tell a good story. Well, now there's Shondaland Audio. We've partnered with iHeartRadio to launch a slate of great podcasts. You can listen to the first 4 right now. Katie's Crib, Criminalia, Go Ask Allie, and You Down. And we have so much more coming your way. We can't wait for you to hear it all. Welcome to Shondaland Audio. Listen to all the new Shondaland Audio shows on Apple Podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
Let's get this party started.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Oh, it's a Friday. How are you? We're fine, thanks for asking. Live in Los Angeles, this is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, we're on Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. I said it 2 weeks ago. It's going to be my best Blazing 5 of the year. I went 4-1. I stunk last week. I think I have the best Blazing 5 I've had this year. Best Blazing 5 this year in 1 hour. Joy Taylor is joining me. Joy, I've got a lot of energy.
You are fired up
I
today.
am fired up today for a lot of reasons, but how are things?
Everything is great. No complaints. Life is good.
So as a parent, there's a saying. I want you to think about this. If you're not a parent, you may be. But as a parent, there is a saying. The days are long when you have kids, but the years fly by. What does that mean? When you got a bunch of kids, there's a lot of chaos. It's hard to raise kids. The days, what time is it? Can I have a cocktail yet? Oh my God. But then you look up and they're in college. And then they have their own kids. The days are long, but the years fly by. In the NFL, the games and the outcomes are surprising, but the seasons are always kind of predictable. Last night, the Colts dominate Tennessee, and I thought, wow, that caught me off guard. And then I went and looked back at my preseason predictions. No, I had the Colts winning the division. And I had Phillip Rivers having a very good year. And he had a very good night. So it seems like, whoa, what is going on? But we knew the Colts had the best young offensive line in the NFL. We knew Phillip Rivers with the Chargers was always productive. We knew this would be Phillip Rivers' best offensive line. And we knew we love Chris Ballard, and the Colts are loaded on defense. They're loaded. They haven't whiffed on any of their draft picks of note. And then you watch it, and you're like, that's surprising. In fact, 5 of the 8 divisions I've got right, even the ones I don't. Is it a shock that Green Bay leads their division? I had them in the playoffs. Is it a shock that Pittsburgh is good? Well, they're the Steelers, right? Like, I didn't like them as much as everybody else. There's very little, if you look at the standings today, Buffalo leads their division. All right, Joy and I predicted that. Pittsburgh, Baltimore in the playoffs. They've been the best 2-run organizations in that division forever. Colts, Titans, that's who I had in first and second. Kansas City winning their division, you all predicted that, so did I. I picked the Eagles to win their division, that's where they're at. I had the Packers second, they're first, not a shock. We all had the Saints and the Buccaneers 1 and 2. I did, Joy did, we all did, that's where it's at. And oh, by the way, the Seahawks lead the NFC West. We kind of liked all the teams. Nobody's shocked that Russell Wilson leads the division. The games are surprising, but the seasons are kind of predictable. But here's what's interesting with these two teams. The Colts. They are the Kansas City Chiefs. But that Midwestern team in conservative Kansas City went for it a few years ago. Kansas City was the Colts. Andy Reid, good GM, stable, long-time owner. Roster was really good. They were a playoff team. But they were in NFL quarterback quicksand. They had to go for it. They were too good to get a top 10 pick, so they had to move up and roll the dice and take a chance on Patrick Mahomes. because they were too good to get one of the 2 or 3 top-rated quarterbacks, right? That's NFL quarterback quicksand. And their quarterback, like Phillip Rivers, Alex Smith, was good enough to get you to the playoffs. But you're not going to win a Super Bowl. So the Colts have a decision to make like another Midwestern team. And Chris Ballard is not a huge risk taker. It's time to roll the dice, fellas. I know you're in the Midwest. It's very conservative, one of our most conservative states. So is, Kansas City, Missouri, very conservative state. It's time to be progressive. It's time to roll the dice. Kansas City did. Paid off. Do you want to be the Minnesota Vikings? You want to be the Minnesota Vikings where you win 10 games, 11 games, you make the playoffs, you can win a playoff game, but you're too good. You're drafting somewhere between 21 and 29, and you can never quite get the quarterback you want. So you get Kirk Cousins, and you keep winning, and they'll probably end up, Minnesota's hot right now, they'll probably make the playoffs, and you're not going anywhere. What do you want to be? What do you want to be? The Colts are the Chiefs. They can make the playoffs. They have a really good roster, a lot of good young players, very dynamic at certain spots, but a ceiling at quarterback. Not a bad quarterback. A quarterback like last night, 29 of 39, 300 yards, 105 quarterback rating. But they got Quentin Nelson, the best offensive lineman in the game, young guy. They got Darius Leonard. How about Pittman, the USC wide receiver, looks good. Jonathan Taylor. Boy, they got a pass rush. What do you want to be? You want to be the Chiefs? Then work against your conservative personalities and go for it. Not a political statement. It's a personality statement. Go for it. Or you're going to be the Vikings. Respected, well-liked, win games, get to the playoffs. But nobody really takes you serious in the Super Bowl conversation. I think the Colts are that good. I think they're a go-for-it move at quarterback away, moving up from being Kansas City. I really do. So Tiger Woods had a great first round at the Masters. I root for Tiger now, I'm not going to lie. You know, it is funny. We're living in an era. We just want to bury the old guys. Nick Saban, get rid of him! He still rules college football. LeBron James just won a title. The number 1 seed in the AFC is Big Ben. The number 1 seed in the NFC is Drew Brees, and Tom Brady's still good. Oh, by the way, Tiger's in contention at the Masters. Think about this. In 2007, LeBron was in the finals, Brady in the Super Bowl, and Tiger won a major. 13 years later, LeBron won a championship, Tom Brady's still crushing, and Tiger's at the Masters in contention. I know old school isn't cool. I get it. But we should probably slow down on burying the old. By the way, the Democrats for 4 years paraded out a dozen candidates to beat Trump. They settled on 78-year-old Joe Biden, who did. Again, not a political statement. That's facts. The reality is the Beatles and Queen were 2 of the top 10 selling albums. Elton John was near the top 10. And oh, by the way, Metallica and the Rolling Stones, when they're allowed to tour, fill arenas. Tiger Woods, how many golfers was I told were going to be Tiger Woods? How many Jordan Spieth, oh, it's going to be Tiger. Tiger, can he make the cut? He was Tiger for a year. Brooks Koepka, he's got 4 majors. Tiger's got 4 times that. Rory McIlroy. Sergio, he won 1 major recently when he was old. You keep telling me, oh, it's the young musician, the young golfer, the young artist. How many NBA players is the NBA going to try to make the next LeBron? One-dimensional James Harden isn't it? Quirky personalities like Kawhi Leonard and Westbrook, they're not it. Talented but can't win a number of playoff series, Giannis isn't it. LeBron's still it. Oh, I love this new extra. She's the next Meryl Streep. No. The next Meryl Streep is Meryl Streep. She just got nominated again in 2018. There is no more Meryl Streeps. One on the planet. Great early, great mid-age, great now, great 2 years ago. Still will get nominated again in her career. You're trying to give me the next Jordan Spieth and James Harden and the new quarterbacks. I got news for you. Mahomes is amazing. He'll never be Brady. He'll go to 8 Super Bowls. Andy Reid's not going to be around that long. They may hire the next coach and he may be a bum. The Beatles, Queen, Metallica. No Meryl Streep. She's the next Meryl Streep. I love that Tiger, once again, is in contention. I saw somebody yesterday. Can he do it for 4 days? I don't know. Give me 3.5, I'll be happy. He won it a couple years ago. But I think it's just deliciously ironic that Jordan Spieth was going to be the next Tiger. He's not as good as the old beat-up Tiger. We want to bury people, and I got news for you. Experience and wisdom, sage knowledge in these big moments. There's a lot of things you can get when you're young. What you can't get when you're young is experience and wisdom. You just can't. You can go to Harvard, you can go to Princeton, you can travel the world. Wisdom comes with age, and I love that Saban and Big Ben and Drew Brees and Tom Brady and LeBron and Meryl Streep and Queen and Elton John and Metallica and the Rolling Stones, either the king or really close to it. All right, I love Carson Wentz, but there is a criticism a GM leveled on him, not his own. And he's right, and there's nothing I can do about it, and it may be Carson Wentz's undoing, and I can't argue out of it. And it worries me because I love Carson Wentz in Philadelphia.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right. Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
Ever wondered why there are two ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is Stuff You Should Know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
On the road a lot during the holidays. Carshield.com, code HERD. This is funny. So, in the summer, when we were all locked in our houses, we were making predictions, Joy, and I said that the Ravens are going to go 16-0.
Yes.
And there's a legendary place in Baltimore called Jimmy's Seafood. They do a really good job. It's all over the internet. And so they sent me this package. They like, hey, we thanks for loving the Ravens. And I was like, oh, that's so kind. Well, the food, it's amazing. I grew up on the beach, crab country in Washington State, so I devoured it for every meal for about 4 days. So the last 2 weeks I've been defending Lamar Jackson, and they just texted me, you want some more seafood? And I'm like, okay, at this point, I'm not sure if I like Lamar or the seafood. I think if I get free crab, I may just vote Lamar MVP. I mean, not that I don't like him, but
it's not about strategy.
I just want a full disclosure. I love Lamar, but seafood's got a way of changing my opinion. I want to say this. I love Carson Wentz. And I've said this over and over, and I defend him. And, I kind of pick a side with quarterbacks. I think it's better as a talk show host to pick a side. I'm not a Baker guy. I'm a Darnold guy. Maybe I'll be wrong. But Carson Wentz I really like. But I have to be honest, I like Garoppolo too, and then he got hurt again and again and again, and I'm out. I'm not going to be stubborn and rigid. Garoppolo's not good enough to get hurt all the time. Aaron Rodgers is. Or Carson Wentz to me is. But there's a criticism about Carson Wentz here by an executive in the NFL. This is The Athletic. This is an offensive coordinator, my bad, in the NFL. He said, listen, Wentz needs to hit rock bottom because right now he doesn't know when to say when. Everything he's doing is trying to extend the play. Like it's the last play of every game. They have all these coaches and analytic guys in Philadelphia, but there isn't anybody holding him accountable. He plays like the last play. Every play is the last play of the game. It is a totally just criticism. It is the knock on him I can't defend. But this quote implies that you could change Carson Wentz. And I want to throw this out. As a parent, and this is something you talk about a lot as parents, what is innate and genetic with our kids and what can you change? I send my kids to therapy. I don't think I'm changing them. My son's impatient. My daughter's more patient. My daughter's more social. My son's less social. It's who they are genetically. My son's more like me. My daughter's more like her mom. Okay? I don't know if you can change reckless. Phil Mickelson has golfed the same way from 20 to 50. It's who he is. Brett Favre, first year in the league last year, last pass in Minnesota. It's who he is. Russell Westbrook. He's been coached by great coaches. This is how he plays. I love Sam Darnold, but he was a linebacker in high school. He's still reckless. That was the knock on him in high school. He's reckless. It was the knock at USC. It's hero ball. It's the knock in the NFL. He's had 7 different coaches. They can't coach it out of him. There are things we know due to studies. Your IQ can be raised over your life. You read more, you travel more. Your IQ can be elevated. You don't have to be somebody that would ace Jeopardy, but you can get smarter over a lifetime. We know you can change your body, your shape with your diet and exercise. But I've never met anybody in my life who was reckless at 24 and cautious at 34. It's like innate. It's like either you're social, my daughter's social, or you're less social, like my son. They can both, he can be social, but he's not a social animal. My daughter is. She's never going to be a recluse. He's never going to be the life of the party. This is who they are. I'm not going to try and change them. I think what makes Darnold and what makes Wentz special is they can make plays almost nobody can. Mahomes is also at times really a gambler, but unlike Favre, he doesn't throw interceptions. That's what the legends do. They give you all the upside and not much of the downside. This quote by the offensive coordinator implies you can change Carson Wentz by just tutoring him. No, you can make him better at the line of scrimmage. If you didn't like his delivery, you could change it a little bit, but Phillip Rivers still throws like Phillip Rivers throws. There are things Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray are getting better at. But when you got the reckless DNA, Favre is Favre, Mickelson's Mickelson, Westbrook's Westbrook. Wentz is Wentz. To me, it's kind of innate. It's who you are, and I don't think it can be coached out of you. Nobody goes from daring to cautious. In life, in any business. I've never seen it. Maybe it's there. I've never seen it. Joy with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
What's something you've changed?
That's a good question. I've tried. I'm a way better listener today than I was 20 years ago.
I take advice now. I never used to take advice.
Yeah, you apparently were a tyrant. According to you.
I mean, I just like to
You almost apologize.
Life.
You almost apologize. I gotta be honest with you. I didn't listen to anybody in my 20s. I think I'm a much better listener.
Yeah, at 25, I started taking advice. It served me well, so I take advice now. If I know it's coming from a good source.
There's only a few of those,
yeah.
but it's the good source I'll listen.
It is. So it's a rookie quarterback matchup between Justin Herbert and Tua on Sunday.
Cannot wait.
The two were picked back-to-back as the 5th and 6th picks in this year's draft, but neither of them are focusing on a budding rivalry.
I have no animosity towards Justin Herbert, and for me, it's not even a competition between me and him. It's a competition for myself to go out and see what I can do to help our team be successful against their defense. And I'm pretty sure it's the same for Justin as well.
He's had so much success over the past couple of years that it's been great to watch him and all the things he's done. So really looking forward to playing against him this week and saying hi.
Now, neither of them are going to say anything
right.
billboard
But
material.
I will say this, though. So let's just talk Burrow, Tua, and Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
And this is something you and I have talked about. How lucky are we as American sports fans? They're all wonderful guys. We are so lucky right now. If you go around looking at, I don't know Patrick Mahomes, but I bumped into him a couple times. He's one of the most low-key great kids. We could have a bunch of schmucks running these franchises. You could have a bunch of egomaniacs. Once again, 3 more quarterbacks come into the NFL, and they're like the nicest guy. Joe Burrow, I rip him. He follows me on Twitter. He's up for it. He's fun. Like, we're very lucky right now in America that the best NBA players are mostly, some are quirky, but likable guys. They stay out of trouble. And our NFL quarterbacks coming in, name me the bad kid. I mean, Baker's not even a bad guy. He just drives me nuts.
I mean, it's not very good for, rivalries, because they're not going to say anything. It's like, how can you hate Justin Herbert? I mean, how can you hate the Chargers anyway? I've never met anyone that's like, I hate the Chargers.
Is it like this, though? Years ago, Michael Jordan, the financial pie, was not as robust. So you were fighting for money. Everybody gets paid now.
But it was also just a different era. There was just more natural animosity. There was, you didn't, and I think there's a lot of factors that play into this.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day, and I saw this coming a few years ago. When you have the ticket and you have these game passes where you can watch teams from anywhere in the country, and you don't have to watch whatever games on TV that night, like, you have an expanded fandom really across the whole world.
Yeah, you like a bunch of players.
Yeah, so it's become more of like liking players than teams.
Right.
And that's led to a whole different kind of culture altogether, which allows more personalities, which I like. But
I never thought about that. It's a good point. Like, you used to like your team and everybody else was the enemy.
Yeah.
And now you can like Westbrook, and you can
watch any team any night from anywhere in the country.
And you get emotionally connected to guys if you watch them over and over and over.
Yeah, and LeBron was a big part of that as well. I'm really excited for this game. And look, like, Tua, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow are going to get compared to each other for the rest of their careers, because that's how it goes. Like, whoever's in your draft class at your position, you get compared to, and that's what we're going to do. And I actually think, and we've talked about this as well, Justin Herbert is a big reason why Tua's out there, because he got out there right away and was productive and successful as far as the numbers go. Obviously, they're in different situations, got to close out some games, but they're just going to get compared. This is going to be a fun game. Dolphins are favored by 2, according to Fox Bet.
I like the Dolphins this weekend.
Yes. So Derek Carr is playing some of his best football this season, but he still has his doubters. The Athletics' Mike Sando revisited his preseason quarterback tiers, where Carr was ranked 20th. But one defensive coach who's faced Carr this year still isn't buying into the Raiders quarterback. He said, the thing I got from playing against him was he's in year 3 of Gruden's offense, so you can see him operate. Dak Prescott made a similar jump. He showed he can solve things at the line of scrimmage, get them in the right plays. I feel like Carr is doing the same thing, but if you can get to Carr, he's not the same guy.
Most quarterbacks aren't. Nobody wants to get hit.
Yeah, I don't... that's kind of like a weird evaluation. Like, if you're constantly hitting Carr, he's not going to do well. Yeah, that's who does well getting hit, or if someone has perfect protection, they're very productive. Yeah, of course.
I mean, Jared Goff's a different quarterback. Jared Goff in his career is 24-5 when he is sacked once or not sacked at all. He's essentially better than Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. So when you don't get to Jared Goff, he wins every week, and when you get to him, he's not the same quarterback.
Look how you were talking about at the beginning of the show. Phillip Rivers did not have an offensive line. It's basically me blocking.
Yeah.
No, that's an exaggeration, I'm sorry. But, not a great offensive line
last night. He's got a great one.
Great offensive line, and now he's productive, and he's able to do what Phillip Rivers does. He's still not a mobile quarterback. He's not going to do anything spectacular, but he's in his 17th year. He can make great decisions and win the game. So Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson will face off Sunday night in Foxborough, and ahead of their primetime matchup, Cam praised the talents of the reigning MVP.
Man, my boy Lamar got a gear not many human beings got. I say Michael Vick, I say Lamar. I don't even think I'm in that stratosphere. But for him to be as dominant, dynamic, explosive at the quarterback position is something that just gives so much opportunity to the younger generation.
I put Kyler in that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kyler is not really being put in that category. I feel like after this year he will be, though.
Well, Michael Vick and Lamar, the one thing I would say, their straight line speed is as good as a receiver. Where Kyler is really shifty and fast. But, I mean, when Michael Vick broke into the league, I can remember this. I remember watching a broadcast, and the broadcaster said he's the second fastest guy in the Falcons to Allen Rossum, who was a punt returner from Notre Dame. And I'm like, he's faster than all the receivers? I think Lamar's probably the first or second fastest Baltimore Raven. So, I mean, Cam was never that kind of fast. Cam was fast.
But Cam is just a physically dominant human being. Like, he's just so big, he could break tackles and also run. But could you imagine if Michael Vick was coming into the league right now?
Well, he would be...
I mean, he was ahead of his time.
Yeah, and I also think Michael would have had better high school and 7-on-7 coaching.
Yeah.
So Michael would have been
He'd
the
been
same
more developed.
thing. Way more developed. Michael would have been better sooner. Whereas Michael admits since like year 3, he was finally like, he didn't start when he came into the league.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Michael would be much ahead of the game, above the shoulders, where all these guys are getting coaching now. I mean, call high school quarterbacks now. Like, go to the line and audible in and out of plays. Like, at the top high schools, like, it's grown-up football in high school.
But we also appreciate the mobile quarterback now. We're not looking for just traditional pocket passers.
Yeah. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Eric Mangini, NFL coach, Jets and Browns, Fox Sports NFL analyst. Love having him on. Brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Speaking of quarterbacks, I want your opinion on Tua. Gotta be honest, I was worried after the Rams game. It's early, but I thought he was twitchy and I mean, I knew he was accurate. He's been accurate I saw his high school footage. Accuracy is not my concern, but I gotta be honest with you. He made a lot of quick decisions in the red zone. He was better than I thought. I didn't know if he had that in him. What did you think?
Yeah, all along, we talked about it a few weeks ago. I didn't know if his start was a function of that being part of the plan or the success that Herbert had and organizationally they were pushing him in. Then you watch the first game and you've got some real concerns because it was a fairly pedestrian performance. But watching this past game, what you're excited about if you're a Miami Dolphins fan is the poise that he had and the presence that he had. The Cardinals brought not only a volume of blitzes, but they brought a variety of blitzes. And he did a really good job of identifying what was coming and getting the ball to the right place. And then, as you said, he throws an extremely catchable ball.
Yeah.
Thought his placement was very good. But outside of all of those things, you could see that Arizona was saying, okay, we're going to test how good this guy can decipher what we're bringing. And he did an outstanding job with that.
You know, this Carson Wentz, a coordinator came out and said he's too reckless. Every play's the last play. And this is an interesting question for you because you briefly had Brett Favre. And I said, there's a lot of things you can elevate a player in. But Phil Mickelson has always been reckless as a golfer, and he was reckless at 18. He's reckless now, despite the money, the earnings. Brett Favre in Minnesota, it never changed. It's who he is. And my question with Wentz is, he is reckless. Sam Darnold's reckless. I've never seen a quarterback go from reckless to cautious. Like, this is how Jameis plays, right? Like, you're a coach. Have you seen quarterbacks be reckless and then 4 years later they're very smart, they don't make mistakes?
Yeah, look, I had those conversations with Brett Favre, and this was at the end of his career, just trying to say every single throw doesn't have to be, inside of a tight window, and it's okay to throw the ball away. But it's hard for me to put Carson Wentz in Brett Favre's category, and I think some of this criticism that's coming this year is a little bit unfair. And when you look at his body of work, he's thrown almost 3 times as many touchdowns and interceptions over the last 3 years. And this year it's more of a 50-50 situation, but it's dramatically different in terms of what he's dealing with. He's at a game where he's been sacked 8 times. He's at a game where he's been sacked 6 times. And I think Carson, why you love him, and especially you, Colin, I know you love him fiercely, is because of his grittiness, because of the chances that he takes, and he makes some plays with that, and he makes some really good plays, but it feels like he's pushing a little bit too hard now, and that's where the volume of mistakes come in. Now, my fear with Carson Wentz isn't the interceptions, it's holding the ball too long, and it's whether or not he can survive the season, because he takes hits, and I've said this since his rookie season, he takes hits that he doesn't need to take. He doesn't need to get hit for a 3 or 4 yard gain. That part has got to be improved. Otherwise, it won't matter. He just won't be on the field.
So I said it this week, and it was speculation by me, but I said Belichick will probably end up winning 5 games this year, and that means they're not going to get a top 10 pick. They'll probably be 10 or 11 or something. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will. But Belichick, I've never said tanking, but he's too smart to want to be 8-8, 9-7, and 10-6, but not have a quarterback. And I don't see the solution at quarterback. I don't think it's Cam. I don't think it's Garoppolo, and I don't think he's getting one of the 3 college guys. Wouldn't it be easier to just do a Coughlin and Parcells, go down to the Sun in Jacksonville and get Justin Fields, or go to Los Angeles with the Chargers if Anthony Lynn gets booted and take Justin Herbert? Brady left and it shocked all of us. Why couldn't Bill Belichick leave New England and make his life easier for the next 5 years?
Well, I think he loves New England. I know he loves New England. He's got a house in Nantucket, and what do you hear from Tom Brady now as he talks about his new situation? He talks about the fact that they're struggling because there's not continuity. Bill has continuity. Bill has two of his kids that are working with him. He grows his own coaches. He's got the organization, the support staff, the scouting staff, all those different areas. Take your pick. They know what to expect, and that continuity goes a long way. He's down a little bit this year, and the whole idea of tanking that was talked about last week, you can tell by the happiness that they had in beating the Jets. This is far from a team that's tanking, but I also think he values Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft traded a first-round draft pick for him when he had one winning season as a head coach. He made an incredible investment and a great investment, and their working relationship, which sometimes is characterized as being a little bit contentious, I don't think that. I think there's great mutual respect, and it's not every owner is like that. Robert Kraft is unique in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are better than I thought. But it's never easy. I mean, they struggle with the Cowboys. They struggle with Houston. And I look at this team. If you coach the Steelers, there's obviously things you have to love. I mean, they develop players. The defense is exceptional. TJ Watt, like we all know that. But would it concern you that they can't really bury anybody? And when you get to the playoffs, those close wins very easily when you're facing a Mahomes or a Derek Carr or a Lamar Jackson, or a Josh Allen. Would it concern you with Pittsburgh that they don't really put their foot down on teams and every game is seemingly up for grabs with 5 minutes left?
Well, when they lost, or when they beat Baltimore and they beat them the way that they did, and they played as poorly as they did, I thought that was a really good indication, and I know it's a strange metric that said how good a team they were, to find a way to beat a good team when they played as poorly as they did. Now, that being said, to come back the next week against Dallas and have it come down to the final 2 minutes before you can win that game, that to me, you start getting a little bit concerned about the trend of not playing as well as they should have over the last few weeks. It's hard to criticize a team that wins and wins consistently, and maybe it's not pretty, but you do have some concerns about the way they've struggled. To me, the way they've struggled over the last couple weeks is problematic, and now they're playing a Cincinnati team with Ben's got 2 bad knees. He's been out all week in COVID protocol. Who knows what that's going to look like?
By the way, Colts-Titans wasn't the most riveting game, but we have a 3-week stretch now where the Titans are kind of a mess. Their special teams are bad. They've got no pass rush, and it kind of feels, I really like a lot about them, but I wake up this morning and I think, did they get lightning in a bottle at the end of last year? Schedule, they won some close games early this year, but they've been exposed by week 7, 8, 9, 10. You get exposed in this league, and the Titans are just, it was a fun ride while it lasted, but they're just not special.
Well, I would have said that's true if they had been exposed defensively or had been exposed offensively, but that game they lost in a way that they typically win games, to have the great 4th down stop that they did, and then the punter shanks the punt, the Colts come down and score, and then the next play, the punt's blocked. That's kind of the way that the Titans have won games. And I have a lot of respect for Mike Vrabel. I coached him. He's arguably one of the smartest guys I've ever coached, and his recall of defenses and things we did over time was impressive, and he's gonna figure out a way to maximize what they do have, like he did last season. And I know it's got to kill him to lose on special teams, because that's how he started. He was a special teams player that we brought in from the Steelers. I think that he'll get this straightened out, and he'll maximize the talent that they have. And it's also a Thursday night game. There's a limited amount of preparation that goes into it. This will look a lot different in 2 weeks when these two guys play again.
Good seeing you, Coach. Eric Mangini. Have a nice weekend.
All right, you too, Colin.
Best plays and 5 picks of the year, top of the hour. Plus, coming up next, why do we like Michael and Tiger more at the end of their careers than we do LeBron James? I think that's true, and I'll tell you why. Coming up next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
I'm Shonda Rhimes. If you've watched Grey's Anatomy or any of my TV shows, then you know I love to tell a good story. Well, now there's Shondaland Audio. We've partnered with iHeartRadio to launch a slate of great podcasts. You can listen to the first 4 right now. Katie's Crib, Criminalia, Go Ask Allie, and You Down. And we have so much more coming your way. We can't wait for you to hear it all. Welcome to Shondaland Audio. Listen to all the new Shondaland Audio shows on Apple Podcasts.
Upgrade to wiper blades you can trust in lousy weather. Michelin Endurance XD silicone wiper blades. Get them at Walmart. Only place lasts 2 times longer than other blades. Hey, I talk about this all the time. People don't like change. Like, I don't like change. I don't like change. I don't like wearing masks. I mean, I don't like it, but I think it's going to become kind of a part of our lives, maybe going forward for a while. But I don't like wearing masks either. But I do. Yeah, prime example. I was talking to my wife about something a couple days ago. When seat belts came out. What about my freedom? They'll ruin your organs. People said that. We fought seatbelts for a decade. Now you're an idiot if you don't wear them. Nobody likes masks. Just wear them. We're going to the winter. Wear them. Save some lives, okay? I don't like them either. Nobody likes them. Everybody, go back to the beginning of seatbelts. People said it was going to ruin your organs. I'm not joking. They said that. People fought them for 10 years. My freedoms, my liberties, my car. You can't tell me. Don't be an idiot. Put on a seatbelt.
Do you see this face?
Yeah.
Do you think I want to cover this up?
Moneymaker!
I mean, it should be a crime. But I do it, so...
Honestly, look at the camera right now. Have you ever had a pimple?
Yeah, I have one right now, actually.
It's disturbing.
I have one, and we were talking about it in hair and makeup. I was going to do the Marilyn Monroe thing.
Making a mole?
That's a girl's trick. Yeah, we just make a little mole, but if it's
we
TV,
just
so
pick it
they'll
as
notice.
guys. I was saying this. LeBron James is great, but I don't feel he's as loved as Michael Jordan was. And I don't feel he is as loved as Tiger is today. And I think he's more polarizing. And people say it's politics. Oh, give me a break. We've liked a lot of people that talks politics. Muhammad Ali was the biggest, most popular athlete perhaps in my life, and he's the most political athlete of my life. I don't buy all that stuff. I think what Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, it's Masters Week, Tiger played very well yesterday, have in common is, at the end of their careers, they became closer to us. They became relatable. Michael Jordan, dad gets murdered. He goes and tries baseball and he stinks, mostly. He comes back and he's got teammate issues. His first year back he didn't win. And then we watched him struggle. And then Michael was great and you say, oh, how can I relate to him? But he was never relatable. Do you realize he had 2 3-peats? The second 3-peat for Michael Jordan got much higher ratings than the first. Did you know that? And that's playing the Utah Jazz. It got higher ratings than when he played against Magic or Charles Barkley. Because we could relate to Michael. The fever. His father. The baseball struggles. He quit trying. Look at Tiger Woods. If you look at Tiger Woods, we were in awe of him, but we didn't necessarily all root for him. And then he goes through a divorce. He's very much like the rest of us over 50. His back hurts a lot. His hair is receding. He has really bad days on the golf course. He probably swears too much when he hits a bad 2-iron. You know, and he's divorced. And he doesn't probably get to see his kids every weekend like he wants to. Like, that's very relatable. Michael and Tiger, as they went through kind of common everyday struggles, at the end, Michael's highest rated NBA final was not against Magic. It wasn't. It wasn't against Sean Kemp and Gary Payton. It wasn't against it was against the Utah Jazz. Because by then we knew Michael. We knew that his life wasn't perfect. We knew he couldn't hit a curveball. We watched him struggle in the minor leagues. We watched him hit 200. We saw we saw him bury his father. We saw the frustrations he had with Rodman and Jerry Krause. That he wanted to play again and he had to quit. We really liked Michael at the end. We were really rooting for Michael. And I find myself today rooting for Tiger Woods. When I watched him at first, I loved him. But I was just in awe of him. I was in awe. But at the end, I can remember watching the Utah series, and it was hard not to root for Michael. And right now, this weekend, it's almost impossible not to root for Tiger Woods. I get people that don't root for LeBron. He feels, frankly, not that relatable. I mean, he got kind of injured for half a year. But if you go back and look at the highest rated LeBron finals, do you know which one it is? It's not those glamorous teams in Miami. No. No, it's not. It's Cleveland. He broke the city's heart. He wanted to make amends. Nothing in Cleveland is ever easy. Even the summer's humid. Nothing's easy. He was the underdog. They trailed in the series. The ultimate struggle. We all dumped on him. He's down. It's over. He was facing a dynasty. That was when you could really relate to LeBron. He's in Cleveland. It wasn't a perfect team. His teammates, he didn't have the superstar coach. He didn't have D. Wade and Bosh. It wasn't a glamorous team. It wasn't Aqua Water. It was Cleveland. And it was facing a dynasty. And they got down 3-1. And he was going to lose again. It's like, oh, okay, I can relate to that. And so there is something, I guess my point is, if you're I think the guy that just won the presidency, he lost his family. Joe Biden has had massive personal loss, like incredible, sad, personal, life-altering loss. I think that's incredibly relatable to people. And I think it is with Tiger Woods. I can remember I was a sportscaster in Portland, Oregon, and Tiger was winning juniors. I think he won one of his juniors in Beaverton, Oregon. And there was a lot of resentment. And people felt it was always racial, but maybe some of it was generational. Like, why are we showing the 18-year-old instead of the old golfers that have been on tour forever? I want to see Greg Norman. I want to see Faldo or whoever. And I would go golf at public courses, and people would say, you sportscasters only talk about Tiger. And it was like, there's so many great golfers out there. Why are you talking about golf? And I'm like, I got it. It was generational. It was like golf is a gentleman's sport. Let's not just bury all the, let's not stop talking old guys. But it's almost impossible to find people today. I mean, if you go back to Tiger Woods' last win at the Masters, I mean, you look at that gallery. I mean, there wasn't a person there in Augusta, Georgia that was not rooting for Tiger Woods, because we've seen him struggle. And the receding hairline, and the back pain, and the divorce, and, it's over, and the multiple surgeries. And I think it makes him incredibly relatable, and I'm rooting for him this weekend. I can like Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, I can like him, but they're young. They'll have their day. For Tiger, this could be one of his last chances at a major. Who knows? Blazing 5 next.
I'm Shonda Rhimes. If you've watched Grey's Anatomy or any of my TV shows, then you know I love to tell a good story. Well, now there's Shondaland Audio. We've partnered with iHeartRadio to launch a slate of great podcasts. You can listen to the first 4 right now. Katie's Crib, Criminalia, Go Ask Allie, and You Down. And we have so much more coming your way. We can't wait for you to hear it all. Welcome to Shondaland Audio. Listen to all the new Shondaland Audio shows on Apple Podcasts.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
I'm Shonda Rhimes. If you've watched Grey's Anatomy or any of my TV shows, then you know I love to tell a good story. Well, now there's Shondaland Audio. We've partnered with iHeartRadio to launch a slate of great podcasts. You can listen to the first 4 right now. Katie's Crib, Criminalia, Go Ask Allie, and You Down. And we have so much more coming your way. We can't wait for you to hear it all. Welcome to Shondaland Audio. Listen to all the new Shondaland Audio shows on Apple Podcasts.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go. It's hour 2. It's Friday. Oh, we are rolling along. First hour flew by. Live in Los Angeles, this is The Herd. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening. We're on Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. I've got to be honest with you. I'm starting to not only have good feelings about my facial hair, I think it's here to stay.
It's been here for a while now. It's been like a month now.
Yeah. Gotta be honest with it. I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
I told you it's a good look.
I don't know, we'll see. Once management steps in, you know how management gets. They're very controlling in the world, management. I don't know, I think people, it's funny. You look around because of the COVID and we've all been at home, and I think the culture has changed a little bit. Like, first of all, people are discovering, working at home, you can do it a lot. You're just wasting gas money in your car. Like, I actually think it's kind of cool. I know I can't, but I know a lot of people that have, and they like it. And they spend more time with their families. And the other thing is, a lot of people have grown facial hair and gotten dogs. If you go look at the kennels in America.
I almost got a dog last week.
Yeah.
I was very close
to it. So, a couple other things. I've never seen more facial hair in America. You're home, you don't have to impress the boss. And the other thing is, dogs are being adopted all over America. It's amazing. The kennels, in Los Angeles, I can speak to that. They get cleaned out pretty quick. People, and I think it's an amazing thing. Like, from bad always comes good. I mean, obviously there's tragedies in America, but there's silver linings to virtually everything. And how we're treating animals now, people are really in on adopting dogs that would otherwise be put to sleep.
Yeah.
And I think we have a more casual workplace. People are working at home. They're around their families more. I'm hanging out with my kids all weekend. I'm going to Vegas and hanging out with my kids, and it's like there's a lot of, if you like yourself, you've been fine. If you're okay being around, reading a book and watching a movie and being okay with your own space, hey, you're fine with this stuff. It's not any day at the beach, but my wife said last night, she goes, I like me, so I'm okay with it.
We all have to adapt to things, and we're all adapting to this together.
Yeah. All of our odds are provided by Fox Bet. I think it's the best Blazing 5 I've had this year. This is the best one this year. Now, I said it 2 weeks ago and went 4-1. Last week was very challenging. Here we go. I like it.
That's a hot one. Let's blaze it off. Fire it up. It's Colin's Blazing 5. Buccaneers at Panthers.
Pretty easy one here, folks. Tampa Bay -6. I'm all over it. Great teams or good teams with good players that get humiliated on national TV are almost always good the next week. Tampa was humiliated. They're going to be totally focused. And by the way, Tom Brady's 0-2 against the Saints. He's 6-1 against everybody else this year. And in his career, 20 times he's had a terrible game. Like 15, he's come back and not only won but covered the spread. The Bucs defense still forces the most turnovers in the league and tied for the most interceptions. And the Panthers are a fun story, but there's a reason they've lost 4 straight games. They're not that good. And Christian McCaffrey's not going to play. Their star, Tampa Bay, bounces back after being rolled. 33-23, Bucs win and cover.
Eagles and Giants.
This is one of my favorite picks of the week. Like it, I love it. Giants +3.5. I think they're going to win straight out. I'd bet money line. Maybe I already have. Ooh, it's a bye for the Eagles. Doug Peterson, the coach, has had 4. He's 1-3. He's not one of those coaches who is great off buys. Carson Wentz is the most hit and most sacked quarterback in the NFL. Most hits, most sacks, most giveaways. He does get a little healthier this week. Some guys coming back, but the Giants are 5-1 against the spread in the last 6. That's the best in the NFL because the bettors haven't caught on to it. They're a good football team. They're not great, but they're good. And the Giants over Washington last week was their best performance of the year. Their defense has forced 15 turnovers this year. Only Tampa Bay's got more. The Giants this morning are a better team than Philadelphia. They win straight out. I'll take the points 23-21.
Chargers and Dolphins.
What happens when something is random and then it becomes a trend? Here's a trend. I like Miami minus 2.5 points. I'll take the Dolphins. Because I think what's happened to the Chargers is now a trend. They are not well coached at the end of games. They are 1-6 in one-possession games this year, and they were bad in one-possession games last year, and their 2 wins have come over the Bengals and Jags, who are a combined 3-12-1. Tua looked really good last week. And that's the thing about this team. We know the Dolphins' defense is good. They have 1 or more takeaways in 14 straight NFL games, second longest streak in the league. Do you know their offense this year is top 10, averaging 28? We just don't realize this is not just about their defense, which we acknowledge. Brian Flores and the defense is good. They are giving you 28 points a weekend. The Chargers, I don't trust them late in games. Big coaching edge to the teams at home. Miami, Dolphins win it 26-20. I think it's going to be a wildly entertaining game, but I'm betting on the better defense, the home team with better momentum, and a big coaching edge to the Dolphins.
Seahawks and Rams.
A lot of people like Seattle. I like the Rams minus 2.5, and here's why. Jared Goff is 24-5 in his career. When you sack him once or less, Seattle has no pass rush. Translation, Jared Goff will be comfortable. Translation, he wins when he's comfortable. But it's the Rams' defense that is actually the story. Like Miami's offense is actually better than you think. The Rams are second in the NFL in points a game, yards per play allowed. They're first. It's a real defense. And Aaron Donald has given Seattle fits. He's got 12 sacks in 12 games against Russell Wilson, his most sacks against any offense. Now think about that. He has sacked Russell Wilson more than any quarterback, and Russell Wilson's hard to get. Why? Aaron Donald dominates Seattle's interior defensive line. Sean McVay, a coach who is good off buys, gets extra prep. The Rams are healthier. Oh, by the way, they've won 4 of their last 5 against Seattle. I like the healthy, rested Rams 32-26.
49ers and Saints.
Favorite pick of the week, love the Niners plus 9.5. That's up to 10 in some spots. First of all, do you think that's the Saints? The Saints haven't played that well in 2.5, 3 years. They're not going to look like that. Coming off a huge divisional Tom Brady win, the Saints come back down the earth. By the way, the 49ers still have a lot of good players, and after getting humiliated by Green Bay on Thursday Night Football with a little extra time with Kyle Shanahan, I like it. Here's a little stat for you. The Niners are 5-1 against the spread last 2 years when they have a rest advantage. Translation, Kyle Shanahan, extra prep is excellent. And by the way, you can say Nick Mullins. What about Nick Mullins? He has a 91 passer rating. In Vegas, they think Nick Mullins is about 1.5 points less than Jimmy Garoppolo. And Garoppolo right now wasn't playing well, wasn't very effective. This is also the 49ers season this week. This is their season. Arizona's tough. The Rams and Seattle are tough. Everything for Kyle Shanahan comes with the rest. I like the Saints to win close, but I love 9.5 or 10 if you can get it. 28-23 Saints. For more of my Blazing 5 picks, check out the Fox Bet social platforms. Love those picks. I'm taking the favored Bucks, the dog Giants, the dog Niners, and small favorites Miami and Los Angeles on our Blazing 5 picks. So, one of the things I appreciate, so it used to be when I did this, and Joy to a lesser degree, but some of it, the media was rougher years ago. The media was older years ago. But big corporations that own the media, they don't want to pay the older people, so the media's gotten younger. In my lifetime, it's a much younger media. It's a much cheaper media, and it's a different media. There are more people in the media that root for teams. Like when I got into this business, like you didn't root, like you were a hack. If you weren't cynical, you weren't respected. And that, to this day, I'm probably a little more harsh than the rest of the American media. That's the generation I grew up in. When I was in Portland, I ripped the Blazers. And when I was in Tampa, I was all over the Bucks. When I was in Vegas, I got death threats for ripping Tark. And I took that as a badge of honor. The media today tends to be friendlier. So I always appreciate when the media is tough on people. Tom Curran, I bring him on this show. He was all over Bill Belichick at a press conference. I could play 5 minutes of it. He got right after Bill Belichick. He said, your drafts in the last 4 years are bad. And he tried to kind of make it land more gently, but here was one of the questions Tom Curran asked. By the way, this is not easy to do. You're questioning the greatest football coach ever, and Belichick has the patience of somebody who doesn't have patience. Here it is.
A lot of the players have been brought in via the draft since 2017, haven't won those competitions or gained your faith and confidence. I know how much you put into the draft, and I know how much every team puts into the draft. I guess there's a disconnect between whether it's injuries, development, competition. So not asking a question on it, continuing to write or spitball about it doesn't do us any good if we don't ask the guy who's in charge of it.
Yeah. Well, Tom, I'd say the most important thing to me is winning games. And I'm not going to apologize for our record over the last 20 years. I mean, I've seen a lot worse. So ultimately, we try to put the best team on the field that we can to be competitive, and I don't really see that changing.
Now, it should be noted, as Bill has won more, he has pushed back on advice on the draft. And it's not that Belichick was always a poor drafter, and they still do a pretty good job on the offensive line. But they don't have dynamic players, and as Bill has won more Super Bowls, when Tom beat Atlanta, Tom started doing more commercials. And when Bill beat Atlanta, Bill stopped listening to anybody in that personnel department. If you go to their last 3 drafts, they got one guy who's hit. He's a right tackle out of Michigan. He was a guard. They've used him at tackle. Michael Onwenu, he's a very good player. He's been terrific for them. Outside of that, it is a bunch of guys, even their first picks. N'Keal Harry, Jawan Williams, the corner from Vandy, Isaiah Wynn, Duke Dawson, Sony Michel. These guys they're just dudes. And those are like first-round picks. So, and I think some of it is very human. It's arrogance. This is what happens to Bobby Knight, and it's what happens to, Greg Popovich when you start thinking the system wins games. No, the players. Players win games. Belichick's won 43% of his games without Brady. Players win games. Pete Carroll fired twice. 7-9, 7-9 pre-Russell Wilson. Greg Popovich. No, Greg, it's not you. It was Tim Duncan. Now, your system's valuable. It elevated Tim Duncan, but you won because of Tim Duncan. The older Tim Duncan got, and the less dominant Tim Duncan got, the less Greg Popovich won. And now his team's aren't any good. So, this is, listen, I know companies like to believe it's all about strategy. No, it's not. You can have all these executives in the world. The Ringer sold for a bunch of money because people like to listen to Bill Simmons' podcast. That's it. There's no strategy. They screwed everything else up, but that was good. I mean, seriously, Bill's popular. He gets 2 million people to listen every Monday to his podcast. That's why they make, it's an hour and a half long. They make $1 million every week on it. That's why it works. It's not strategy. It's this didn't work, that didn't work, his TV show didn't work. Doesn't matter. The Monday podcast works because people like it. Barstool Sports. They made a bunch of mistakes. People like Big Cat and Portnoy, and they listen to their podcast. They made a bunch of mistakes. They did a TV show. It lasted 1 episode. They made a bunch of mistakes. They've said things they shouldn't have said. Strategy, nonsense. Players. Got to have Brady Mahomes. Andy Reid won a bunch of games. Got Patrick Mahomes. Now wins all of them. This is the way it goes. So Belichick, and you can push back and all this stuff. Last 4 drafts, you got no players. How you doing this year? Because Buffalo's got better players, and Miami now is about 1 more draft from way more good players. And strategy is a bunch of bunk. Strategy only works when you got great players. The rest of it's nonsense. Pete Carroll's strategies never worked anywhere. He went to USC, it worked. He got Russell Wilson, it worked. It didn't work the other NFL places. Belichick's strategy didn't work early days in New England. It didn't work in Cleveland. Strategy is overrated. You know why our World Series is so great? Because Joe Buck and John Smoltz, those dudes know baseball. And you put them on and they talk baseball, you're like, oh, those meetings for years about the World Series. It wouldn't sound as good without Joe Buck and John Smoltz. I'm not saying the camera people and the producers and the strategy and the executives, it's not a shot at anybody. But, there's very little great. And when you get great, it cuts through and it makes all the strategy work. That's my takeaway. So Belichick's strategy is a bunch of nonsense. He's a good coach. Watch him play. They can't score any points. They can't move the ball. They're gonna get probably boat race by Baltimore this weekend. Why? Baltimore's got more good players. Suddenly, John Harbaugh was going to get fired 2 years ago. John Harbaugh was going to get fired. He drafts Lamar Jackson. He got an extension. Strategy. It's just funny. It's funny how Joe Flacco got worse and John Harbaugh's strategy got worse. It's just crazy how it works. And last year, the Steelers didn't have Big Ben. All their strategy didn't work. They had a guy named Duck Hodges quarterback, and the strategy wasn't very good. Oh, Big Ben came back. They're 8-0. Strategy's all brilliant now. I'm not taking shots at him. I'm just saying, this is all nonsense. The strategy stuff. Get stars. By the way, Kobe, without a big man, he couldn't get out of the first round. He had Shaq and Gasol. He won titles. Was Phil Jackson suddenly... No, when Phil Jackson had players, Phil Jackson won the title. I saw Phil Jackson get swept by the Dallas Mavericks once in a playoff series. Why? They didn't have Kobe and Shaq together. And that's the way it works. The strategy in Los Angeles wasn't as good when Magic Johnson got old. Suddenly the strategy wasn't as good, because Magic wasn't as good. And by the way, the Pistons were great forever. Was Chuck Daly the great strategist? By the end, when they got old and beat up, the strategy didn't work. I mean, they were still good. So, they don't draft very well. That's why they're not winning games. They're not very dynamic. That's why Tom Brady left. They don't have enough good players. I got nothing against I like coaches. But all that strategy stuff works when you have the star to burst through, the Mahomes, the Tim Duncan, the Kobe's. That's when it works. Then otherwise you're 7-9, but a genius and respected among coaching circles. That and $3 get you coffee at Starbucks. Sorry. All right. Emmanuel Acho's coming on today. He's got a new book, wants to be a bestseller. Oprah's pushing Emmanuel Acho's book. It will be a bestseller.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
I'm Shonda Rhimes. If you've watched Grey's Anatomy or any of my TV shows, then you know I love to tell a good story. Well, now there's Shondaland Audio. We've partnered with iHeartRadio to launch a slate of great podcasts. You can listen to the first 4 right now. Katie's Crib, Criminalia, Go Ask Allie, and You Down. And we have so much more coming your way. We can't wait for you to hear it all. Welcome to Shondaland Audio. Listen to all the new Shondaland Audio shows on Apple Podcasts.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right. Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
RecTech, more than a grill, it's a lifestyle. RecTech with a Q.com, RECTEQ, stainless steel build, 6-year warranty. RecTech grills, buy one, you'll never buy another. Okay, so, Joy and I have been talking about this, that what happens when a young quarterback comes into the league and he just crushes? Well, what happens is everybody else gets really impatient. And you watch Tua, hadn't played in a year and a half, and you watch 2 games and you're like, okay, how much time do you give Dwayne Haskins? How much time do you give Josh Rosen? How much time? I mean, I look around, it's like Bucky Brooks now played in the NFL, drafted in the NFL, scouted in the NFL, now Fox Sports NFL analyst joining us live. So I watched Tua and I watched Kyler, and I got to be honest with you. I mean, Jordan Love, if I don't hear good things in a year, I'm going to be like, I mean, how long am I supposed to give guys when Tua goes out in week 2 and it's like hadn't played in a year and a half and was so smart and accurate and clever and twitchy? It does kind of change perception, right, as a GM or a coach?
I mean, it changes perception, but typically, Colin, the standard is about 32 games is what you give young quarterbacks before you can determine whether they can play or not. Now, the higher you go, the more time you get because you're more invested in seeing those guys succeed.
So Tua Tagovailoa being 5th overall, you're all in. You're going to make sure that the offensive system that he's playing in fits his talent. You're going to make sure that the play caller is right for him. Does he have the weapons around him? Is he protected enough to make sure he can succeed? I think the thing that we're seeing of late, all of the quarterbacks drafted at the top of the board in the last few years, they all have pretty much hit. And so the ones who haven't hit, it's either been a coaching change, a system that just didn't fit them, but typically and traditionally, we haven't had outright bust at the top of the board. And I think that's a testament to the quarterbacking that's being played at the lower levels in high school and college. These guys are more prepared now to step into an NFL huddle and win games as a passer because they've thrown more balls in high school and 7-on-7. They've been exposed to more in college. That's why they're better prepared to be able to play.
As a scout, you're a former scout with Carolina and Seattle, and I want to ask you this. They've done studies that people's IQ over the course of their life can go up. You read more, you travel more. We know we can change our bodies, our weight, our shape by working out and eating right. There's things you can change. But I've always had this theory that Phil Mickelson was reckless as a golfer early, and he's reckless now, and Brett Favre was reckless in college, and he was reckless on his last pass, and Westbrook is the same guy came into the league. This is how he plays. And people, not Carson Wentz, and a coordinator came out anonymously and said, he just plays like every play is the last play of the game. It's very Sam Darnold. It's called hero ball. And I think to myself, as a former scout, Bucky, is reckless something you can coach out of a guy? Because I've never seen it in any sport.
No, I don't think you can coach it out of him. I think you have to accept him for who he is, and that's how he plays the game. I think for Carson Wentz and even Sam Darnold, like that, these guys played the game in a manner in which every game was the last play, and they played it like that. What you try to do is you try to impress upon them the value of the ball and to avoid the turnovers and to make smart and sound decisions, because the fortunes of the franchise rest on the decisions that you make. But as we're seeing with Carson Wentz, and this is typically with most players, they are what they are. What you try to do as an evaluator and as a play caller is to put them in a situation where you can maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses. But the player is what he's always going to be. It is rare that people will change from the way they played in college to the way that they performed as pros.
You know, the Steelers are 8-0. And I think sometimes we all think as fans, in college you recruit a high schooler and then it's understood. You develop him as a player. But we tend to think once you're in the NFL, the development's over. You played college, now come be a good pro. And then I watch the Steelers and I'm like, man, they don't miss on a lot of guys. They develop the players. Like everybody gets better. How do you explain it? Is it Tomlin? Is it the scouts? But I look at New England's drafts, and they've been choppy for 4 years. I couldn't tell you the last time the Steelers had a bad draft. Is it that, or that somebody in the building just develops players? Because they're way better than I thought again this year.
It's a combination of factors. In Pittsburgh in particular, I will say this. Kevin Colbert and his staff, Mike Tomlin and his staff, they do a great job of working together, meaning that the players that are brought in are handed over to coaches who have a vested interest in developing them. They are on the same page, and the thing that when I talk to guys that work for that organization, they say the guy that we pick has to be a Steeler. And what I mean by that is, Colin, there has to be a level of toughness. There has to be a little blue collar to the player that enables them to fit into the organization and the city. You cannot be a guy who is Hollywood and play for the Steelers. It just typically doesn't work over time. You have to be about the work, you have to be about the team, and you have to make sure that each and every day you go about your business. But yes, Mike Tomlin and his staff do a great job of developing the players that Kevin Colbert brings in, and that is why they traditionally draft well, they develop their own, they resign their own, and that is why they've been one of the more consistent franchises forever.
Rams have beaten the Seahawks 4 of the last 5 times. They have extra rest, and I think they'll at home beat the Seahawks this weekend. Beyond the obvious stuff for Seattle that, Pete's going to be a Hall of Famer and Russell Wilson's great, and we know Bobby Wagner's amazing. Their defense is lousy everywhere. Who's to blame? Whose fault is that? Because they just can't They can't make stops. They don't have a pass rush. They're not great at corner. They're very susceptible to the deep ball. Whose fault is it in Seattle?
Well, I mean, I think everybody has a little bit to blame. I think obviously it starts at the top, the players that you bring in, the coaches and the scheme that you utilize, and then the players themselves in terms of understanding what the scheme is. Just understand this, when the Seattle Seahawks went on that glorious run early in the 2010s, when their defense, the Legion of Boom, was playing at a high level, they did something that was unconventional. They played a cover 3 system that was very simple. It was something that you would see in high school games on every Friday night, but they did it better than anybody else because they allowed their players to master it. Well, what happened is when you see the Seattle Seahawks have success, every team in the league started stealing from that. So now more teams get used to seeing that scheme, more teams get used to understanding how to defeat that scheme, and so you have to continue to evolve as a coach. And what has happened, Pete Carroll didn't continue to evolve with the scheme. And also, kind of like you said in the previous segment, you talked about coaches thinking that it's the system, not the player. Well, when you had the Legion of Boom and Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor and Brandon Browner and those guys, really good players playing, that defense looked a lot different. Now that you don't have those guys, you're seeing, hey, the X and O's are one thing, but it's the Jimmies and Joes that really define you. They don't have the same level of talent, which is why the defense doesn't look the same. But I will say this, Jamal Adams, Carlos Dunlap, even though they got obliterated by the Buffalo Bills, they have some of their players coming back. Shaquille Griffin will come in, and you don't need this team to be the Legion of Boom. You just need them to be middle of the pack. If they can get to the middle of the pack with Russell Wilson and that offense playing the way that they play, they can win a lot of games. But they do need to run the ball more to protect this defense, not give it as many exposures.
Good stuff. Bucky Brooks played, scout, NFL Network Plus here at Fox Sports. Thanks, Bucky.
Appreciate you, Colin.
You bet. Busy day. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Ben Roethlisberger has not been able to practice this week because he was a close contact with a player who tested positive for COVID.
I stayed away from that game because I really, I thought Pittsburgh played so poorly against Dallas. I'm like, okay, watch. They're going to come out. And all of a sudden you get this is a real thing. The practice schedules this year are all messed up.
Well, it's kind of interesting because the Steelers are still planning as if he's going to play. He's obviously been able to take part in the meetings virtually, of course, but he's not. They're not concerned because he usually takes Wednesdays off. So if you're looking at the schedule, he's really only missing about 2 days of practice preparation, and it is Ben Roethlisberger. He's been doing this for a while, so the extra time off might not necessarily hurt him. It's more game planning, and you do want to have a normal amount of practice reps in, but they seem overall not concerned because he does take Wednesdays off anyway. Mike Tomlin said this morning he does expect Ben Roethlisberger to come off the COVID list tomorrow, and that the Steelers will have extended walkthrough on Saturday to give him a little extra time with his teammates. Obviously, they are the last remaining undefeated team. I would be more concerned about this if they weren't facing the Bengals. Now, it is a division game, and the Bengals obviously have shown that they have the capability of
they can put points up.
Putting points up, but it's the Steelers defense, and it's Mike Tomlin. Joe Burrow is still a rookie quarterback, so and Ben has plenty of experience preparing for games, and it's a division rival. But it's something to pay attention to. We'll find out, I believe, tomorrow if he's going to be available, or later today because he has to get his final negative test. So the Rams are well rested after their bye week, but will still have their hands full with Russell Wilson on Sunday, and Aaron Donald has faced Wilson many times in his career and knows it will be a challenge to stop him.
Well, that happened multiple times over my career just playing against him. The time where I had him wrapped up and he still found a way to get the ball away. It made my job harder, but, we definitely prepared and ready for that challenge this week.
He's being a bit modest. He's sacked Russell Wilson 12 times, more than any other quarterback, including 8 times in their last 5 meetings, 4 of those being Rams wins.
Yeah, he has been really... The Seahawks offensive line has a great left tackle, Dwayne Brown, and then Jamal Lewis is a rookie right guard from LSU who looks really good. The rest of it has been choppy.
Well, with Donald leading the charge, the Rams have sacked Wilson 61 times in his first.
And again, that's sacking Russell Wilson.
8 seasons, yes. More than any other team. Russell Wilson is tied for fourth most sacks taken this season with 24 and fourth in quarterback hits taken at 61. Aaron Donald is tied for first in sacks this season with 9 and fifth in quarterback hits with 15. This is actually a very big game for the NFC West. Obviously, the Seahawks at 6-2 are the division leaders, but the Cardinals play the Bills this weekend, and if the Rams beat the Seahawks, they would be tied, and they have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So this is a very big game for the Rams and Seahawks.
It's a huge game, and a game in which Seattle, it'll be interesting to watch now with Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap. Can the Seahawks generate enough of a pass rush to make Jared Goff wince be off his game? Because when you don't get to Goff, he's 24-5 in his last 29 games. If you sack him once or less, Jared Goff wins games. He's comfortable.
Well, Goff doesn't get a lot of respect.
He doesn't.
But he has the capability of putting up big numbers, and like you said, if he has protection, I mean, look, any quarterback who has protection is going to perform better, obviously. Like, you want to have a quarterback who can perform at least moderately well without perfect protection, which is someone like Russell Wilson,
That would be
who's carrying the entire team.
But
that's why we give him the credit that we do, because he doesn't have great protection,
Right.
the numbers I just read, and he's still able to perform. So the Lakers are reportedly looking into a blockbuster trade with the Spurs. According to the Ringer's Kevin O'Connor, the Lakers have interest in acquiring four-time All-Star DeMar DeRozan, and they would send Kyle Kuzma and Danny Green to San Antonio in return.
I get why the Lakers want DeMar DeRozan. He's athletic. He's a good. You can put him on the wing. I mean, DeMar's he doesn't shoot threes, but he's a really athletic, long guard. They would be the favorites to win the championship.
I love this move for the Lakers.
Yeah, but I don't like it for San Antonio. I mean, Danny Green's expensive and old, and Kuzma's been wildly inconsistent. I don't get the.
Well, Danny Green's been with San Antonio before, so they're very familiar with him. And I mean, look, whatever San Antonio does, that's an organization that I trust. They're not going to get fleeced in a trade. But I absolutely love that move for the Lakers. And look, Danny Green was huge for the Lakers and played his role, and so was Kyle Kuzma, even though he has a tendency to be inconsistent. DeMar DeRozan is not that. That's,
you know what I feel like right now?
Will be a huge move.
There's a lot of, because next week is the draft,
yes.
and next week is the start of the free agency period.
Yeah.
So it's a fun time in the NBA. You get a lot of rumors now. But sometimes it feels like they're just leaked to create markets for people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's fine, but we'll bite, because it's fun. It's fun. They're just like delicious little rumor snacks.
Yeah, because I'm seeing some of these and I'm like, Westbrook to the Clippers feels
like...
It's like
I know. I'm kind of... look, I'm not invited on everything. Sometimes you're at the party and just browse. Like, that looks like it could be good. But if I mix it with this snack... Later on, it might not be the best, so we'll just browse.
All right,
but
fair enough.
NBA free agency is always yummy.
So next week it's NBA free agency and the draft. It's a bad draft, and it's not a huge free agent class. But let's be honest, trades. This has always been the case with the NBA. The playoffs are the best, but the second best is often the off season over the regular season. It's fun. You're moving stars and chess pieces.
And it's just discussable, and it's like you said, it's rumors, and people start looking at Instagram likes and follows, and it's a good time.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Ever wondered why there are two ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Sunday, a huge Fox NFL doubleheader starts with Tom Brady and the Bucks taking on the Panthers. Then in America's Game of the Week, Russell Wilson and the Seahawks battle Jared Goff and the Rams or other regional action. Check local listings for the game in your area. Jaguars-Packers is featured in this week's free-to-play Super 6 contest, where players have won over $1 million so far this year. All you have to do is correctly predict the outcome of 6 NFL games, so get your picks in before kickoff Sunday for your chance to be a millionaire. And for top story scores and more, go to the Fox Sports app. Colin, give us your winner and final score for Jags-Packers.
30-20 Green Bay. Green Bay, I've come to the conclusion, is the opposite of the Steelers. The Steelers aren't front runners. They just play to their competition. So the Steelers play the Cowboys and almost lose. Green Bay's the opposite. They're a front runner. It's Mike Tyson. When they can beat up on somebody, they do. They just crush them. But unlike the Steelers They'll play their best if they play the best.
Yeah.
But they'll play terrible against the Cowboys and the Bengals. That's the Steelers' culture. They're like alpha males. Like, sometimes, we drink a little too much, we're hungover. But there's a fight at OK Corral, Octagon, we'll bring our best and beat you up. Green Bay's very finesse, very sports car. Oh, the weather's good, we're going to dominate. But you get invited in a fist fight in the Octagon, they want no part of it. So Green Bay will win this game going away because they'll be comfortable and they're front runners. The opposite. Pittsburgh is like, just call us when Baltimore's on the schedule.
So I think Pittsburgh and Bengals will be close this weekend?
Well, the Big Ben thing is a stay away for me. I think the Bengals, I would bet the Bengals if I had to. I'd bet the Bengals plus 6.5. I think Fox bets is 6.5. I would take the Bengals because I just think that's what Pittsburgh is. Plus Big Ben hasn't practiced. But if they, I always think Pittsburgh's ready for a fight. Hell, last year they lost Big Ben. They had Duck Hodges. They won 7-8 games.
They're in the playoffs.
They're always ready for a fight. Green Bay's not. Green Bay's a front runner, so they played. Jacksonville comes into town, warm weather Jacksonville, cold in Wisconsin. Boom, they'll roll them. Joey and I were talking about this during the break. Is that there's just some things like when Jerry Seinfeld does stand-up comedy, he wears a tie and a suit. That's when he thinks he's funniest because Jerry's very exact. He's very much word efficient. Chris Rock can wear a suit. Usually dresses like he's going, kind of like upscale restaurant. He dresses not too formal, cooler, because he's funnier in his mind when he feels cool. He's got a little Ali quality. He's performing. Dave Chappelle, also very funny, he'll wear warm-ups. He doesn't want to wear a suit because Dave Chappelle is a little looser, a little more of a storyteller. He likes to be loose. They're all three hysterical. But one guy feels comfortable, he's more exact in a suit, telling jokes. The other guy likes to dress a little more going out with my beautiful wife, cool. And the other guy's like, I can just wear a t-shirt and jeans and be funny. They're all funny, but they all have a different feel for how they perform. And that's how I feel sort of with Carson Wentz when he gets ripped. He likes to play on the edge. He's a quarterback that, like Tom Brady, doesn't. Tom Brady is very Seinfeld. He's very buttoned up. I'm going to be exact, and I'm going to be precise, and if the jokes will land, and the passes will land, and if you're not at the spot, I will not perform my pass to you. So Brady's very Seinfeld. He likes efficiency. He likes it buttoned up. He likes exact quarterback play. Whereas, I would say, Russell Wilson's a little more Chris Rock. I'll run the play, but I might buy myself a little cool and a little time here. I know the play. I know where I'm going, but I'm going to buy a little time. And then Kyler Murray is Dave Chappelle. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to end, and I don't know where. I know where I'm starting. I'm not sure where it's ending, but by the 12 seconds later, this is going to be beautiful. This is going to be funny. This is going to be great. And they're all Brady and Russell and Kyler. So you have what I would call, you have a feel for the way you perform. Because comedians and quarterback, you're performing. You know the joke and the play before it starts, but where are you comfortable to make it land? Tom, I want to know what it looks like before it's there. Russell, I know what it looks like. I may take a second to get there. And Kyler is, I'm going to roll a little bit with this thing. Seinfeld, Rock, Chappelle. All funny, all different ways to get there. And with Carson Wentz, the reason I defend him is, I don't think you can make him, he's reckless. There's critics out there saying he's reckless. This is how he likes to perform. He's on the edge. He's a guy that would jump out of airplanes. You know what I mean? That's his personality. Sam Darnold, same thing. He likes to play on the edge. People think Patrick Mahomes does, but he really doesn't. Patrick Mahomes is much more Chris Rock than Dave Chappelle. Right? Like, he's closer to Seinfeld than you think. Aaron Rodgers is more Chris Rock. He's in the middle. Like, he knows the play, but he's going to ad-lib a little. And I guess my point is like with actors, you recite lines. Comedians, basically like quarterbacks, they play, there's a feel to it. Like, Seinfeld has said before that he'll tell a joke in 4 different venues, 4 different ways. And the audience will tell him when to pause. And after about the 4th time he's told a joke, he's like, okay, that's how I'll do it on the Netflix special. Like, you tell the joke, and they don't laugh at the right time. He said all these years doing it, you don't know when they're going to laugh. Where do I pause? I got the words down and the joke down. But I got to read the defense. I got to read the crowd. Oh, okay, that's where I pause. And so when the Carson Wentz, he's reckless. A lot of his stuff lands. Last 12 games, he's won or tied 8 with chaotic injuries. But this is just how he plays. That's the feel for him. So he's reckless. This is what he does. And if you're not comfortable with it, then don't go to Dave Chappelle's show. You know, I mean, he may ad lib a little bit. Some of the stuff won't land as much, but I don't know. I like him. I like his style. I like his guts. I like his courage. I like his toughness. I like how he plays. I like how he overcomes. And he drives me nuts. You throw a shoe at the TV once a Sunday. Like, it's okay. Doesn't always land perfectly. By the way, I was thinking about this, the AFC playoff picture. So we think it's an offensive league. So it's really interesting, the wild card spot that is up for grabs in the AFC. So if you go to the AFC playoff picture, here are the 3 teams that are going to vie for the wild card. We know the Steelers are going to get in. We know the Ravens are going to get in. We know the Chiefs are going to get in. We know Buffalo's going to get in. So here's the 3 teams who are really, really in the hunt. Raiders, Browns, Dolphins. Here's what's interesting. So we think it's an offensive league. So the Raiders have an offensive coach, have drafted offensive well, have a veteran, efficient quarterback. It's an offensive franchise. Outside of Max Crosby, they got no pass rush. Cleveland has an offensive coach, a quarterback now with a lot of snaps, unbelievable offensive personnel. And here's the Dolphins, who have a defensive coach. They spent their money in free agency on defense. Their quarterback's been in the league about an hour. We don't think of them as an offensive team. But who do you like? So people try to convince me it's an offensive league. I like Miami. Miami's got the defensive coach, better talent on defense, the least experienced quarterback. They're very much a defensive franchise, right? That's where they spent their money in the offseason. It's their coach. It's considered a very great defensive staff. They're rebuilding the offensive line. But we keep talking ourselves into it's an offensive league. I like Miami. And by the way, Cleveland's got the easiest schedule. So the 2 offensive teams, I'll take the defense. Because I think November on, this is much more of a defensive league than we give it credit for. It's getting cold. Why don't you get cozy? Tommy John, $25 off site-wide. Go to TommyJohn.com, code HERD, H-E-R-D. Go to the site for details. Pajamas, loungewear. It's getting cold in America. You get cozy. Tommy John, hour 3 next.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
I'm Shonda Rhimes. If you've watched Grey's Anatomy or any of my TV shows, then you know I love to tell a good story. Well, now there's Shondaland Audio. We've partnered with iHeartRadio to launch a slate of great podcasts. You can listen to the first 4 right now. Katie's Crib, Criminalia, Go Ask Allie, and You Down. And we have so much more coming your way. We can't wait for you to hear it all. Welcome to Shondaland Audio. Listen to all the new Shondaland Audio shows on Apple Podcasts.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
I'm Shonda Rhimes. If you've watched Grey's Anatomy or any of my TV shows, then you know I love to tell a good story. Well, now there's Shondaland Audio. We've partnered with iHeartRadio to launch a slate of great podcasts. You can listen to the first 4 right now. Katie's Crib, Criminalia, Go Ask Allie, and You Down. And we have so much more coming your way. We can't wait for you to hear it all. Welcome to Shondaland Audio. Listen to all the new Shondaland Audio shows on Apple Podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
He's the co-host on Speak for Yourself with Marcellus Wiley, who also writes books. His is already a bestseller. It hasn't been released yet, but I know because he told me how many he sold, so it's guaranteed to be a bestseller. His name is Emmanuel Acho. 3 NFL seasons. Brother played as well. He was a first-team All-Big 12 linebacker at Texas. The book is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, Emmanuel Acho. And so I watched your conversations with Roger Goodell and Matthew McConaughey. And we were saying something during the break. It's I think John Lewis, the late John Lewis said this. It's a great line, and I've thought about this before. In life, it's not what you say, it's how it's heard.
Exactly.
And so when I watched your conversations, it wasn't what you always said, but as a white 55-year-old guy, it was how it landed for me. You weren't judgmental. I don't know if you wanted it to land that way, but I thought, oh, this stuff lands right. He's not preaching. He's not lecturing. He's telling me, hey man, this is the way, and so that my first thing is a compliment into you have a way of making stuff land that is uncomfortable, yet I was never uncomfortable listening to it. That was the irony. It's like, oh, this is really, I'm a curious guy. So when you wrote the book, did you think you'd get, it's been wholly embraced. Yeah. Did you think you'd get pushback?
You're always cognizant of potentially getting pushback, and that's why I'm very cognizant of every word I say and putting the right emphasis on the right syllable, right? Because you have to know exactly what you're saying and how you're saying it. You've said, and this is the second time I've heard it, Oprah actually, Colin, was the first person to say it, saying that I have a way of delivering hard information, but it doesn't come off as hard.
Softly.
I don't really know how I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just trying to deliver truth with grace and with love, because I think that's what we need more of in this world is hard truths, but they have to be embodied and packaged with grace. Otherwise, they're too harsh for somebody to receive.
You've used the line, guilt doesn't cause somebody to change, love does. So being, I tell my liberal friends this. Your messaging's bad. You're being condescending. You can get along with conservatives. Don't always tell us how smart you are. So in your book, you never come across as preachy. It's like, listen, I'm going to tell you my life experience, and I want to talk about Oprah, because people often ask me in my life, who's your role model? And I've said Oprah. They're like, not sports guys. I'm like, no, Howard Stern and Oprah own their own brands. That's the goal, to control it. Is Oprah obviously smart, but after talking to Oprah, what's your takeaway on her vision and her?
It's funny because we did a Zoom call for an hour, maybe it was 2 days ago, and the thing that sticks out with me most is the first question she asked me. I hop on a FaceTime after the first episode I did, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. It gets 25 million views in 4 days, and I get a call from Oprah's assistant. She says, hey, Oprah wants to talk to you. The first question Oprah asked me, Colin, what is your intention? She said, what's your intention? Because your intention, it guides your direction.
Right.
And so when she asked me what my intention was, I said my intention is to change the world, be a bridge for racial reconciliation, and I think I can do that. The biggest thing when I talk to Oprah, which guides my direction of all my conversations, is, Emmanuel, what's your intention? And stay true to your intention. Don't worry about clicks, don't worry about likes, don't worry about follows, don't worry about shares. Stay true to your intention and stay true to the messaging. I think that's what she does best.
Yes.
And that's what I borrow most from her.
Are you hopeful?
That's a great question. Colin, I got an email from a 70-year-old woman named Lynn. It was after the first episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. She's a white woman, grew up in rural Alabama in the 1940s or 50s. She said, Emmanuel, I grew up, I didn't go to school with any quote-unquote Negroes. I grew up in rural Alabama, and I was very prejudiced, she says, in so many words. She said, but after watching your episode, I realized I can still change. Please don't give up on me yet. I love you, my son, and my brother. Almost brought tears to my eyes, but it's nearly impossible not to be hopeful when you see something like that. What I realized, Colin, is There's great intentions. So black people and white people, we want to get along, but there's a fracture on how. There's a communication barrier, Colin. There's a communication, color, and culture disconnect.
Yeah.
And that's the real problem at hand.
Culture's fascinating because when I was growing up, there wasn't a black middle class. I think Bill Clinton's presidency was the first time I remember reading about a black middle class because of some legislative changes. And yet your life, from what I've read, you probably feel fortunate. I feel I went through 8 divorces as a kid, but I feel fortunate, right? Because I had a loving mother and a smart father. I want to talk about culturally.
Yeah.
Are we this dissimilar? You want to be loved and loved. You want to be successful. You want to realize your dreams. How dissimilar are we? You and me, black and white, are we really that dissimilar? There are cultural realizations, right?
I would say it like this. If you were to walk into the grocery store and you were to walk down the produce aisle, you would see a bunch of fruits. And they are all fruit. So they have that in common. But they have different shapes, different sizes, different tastes, different textures. And so while at our core, we all have our humanity in common.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I understand the difference between being white and black. I want to state that. I get that. But at our core...
At our core, we're the same. But if the core is expressed differently, then we can never get to the core. You know what I mean? Like, Colin, that's part of the problem, is if we can never get to the core because of the exterior, the psychological differences, then we'll never get to the shared humanity.
So when I ask that, I sound like a stupid old guy when I say, what are our differences? What I'm talking about is today, 2020, November, what is the day? 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. I've always had this theory is that people, and we know the country's past, but mostly... Joy and I root for the same thing. We laugh at the same thing. We cry at the same stuff. And I think sometimes we do such a poor job, our media does a poor job, our politicians, that we're so powerful when we're unified.
Absolutely.
And we're so rarely unified.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to me. Politics makes me angry. I don't like being angry. I think... you get more. I see it, and it's just not a Trump thing. It's just a political thing. Is that I think I get off my phone sometimes. I am angry at our public figures using our divisiveness because we see it. Does it frustrate you?
It does, but this is a sports show, so let's talk sports. Why aren't we unified? In a locker room, people have different races, people have different religions, people have different orientations, but they're all unified, Colin, because they have the same common enemy. Therefore, they have the same common goal. Dallas Cowboys, common enemy. Philadelphia Eagles, let's go out there and win that game. The problem in our society, Colin, is we don't all have the same common enemy. See, people think that it's black versus white, it's man versus woman, when it's really oppressed versus oppressor. It's really hate versus evil. It's really good versus evil, love versus hate. So, when I think about the cause, when I think about the effect, Colin, I'm really looking at the cause. And what's the cause is we're not on the same page of what the common enemy is. So rather than you and I working together to defeat the enemy, you and I are bickering. And we can't defeat the enemy if we're bickering inside the locker room.
Yeah. I know this is heady stuff and it's not real sportsy, but it's the stuff in this book that fascinates me. It's why I'm going to read it when I fly to Vegas today. Listen, I talk sports all day. I don't get smart people that don't want to talk sports. Like, so when I get somebody, this is all the questions I was supposed to ask you at the end, I just moved out. Because that's all the stuff. That's all the stuff that interests me. Nothing against the Colts Titans, okay? We can talk about that all day long.
It was kind of boring. I
don't get your time because we're both busy, right? Yep. And on COVID, we can't be around each other. So this is all the stuff that interests me. This is the stuff Joy and I talk about in the makeup room. We never talk sports. We talk about life and stuff, and this stuff to me is.
Well, here's what I'll say.
I think your book makes me think about race, and I don't get defensive, and I don't get angry, and I don't think many people deliver it like you, and that's why I think it's so important. I think it's so important. Your message is obviously important, but the way you deliver it is very unique, and that's why I like you, and I like your stuff. Because you're striving for that. I don't want to sound like Oprah, but that's what you're striving for. A lot of people aren't honesty brokers in that space. Yeah. That's all I'll say.
Colin, my freshman year at the University of Texas, I'm coming from a private school, predominantly white, so the players I was playing with were undersized. I was typically the biggest. Now I'm going to the University of Texas. Had defensive coordinator at the time, Colin current head coach of South Carolina. He's known for punching a board so hard that the rebound of his fist cut his face in half. Like, that's Will Muschamp. And he said this the first day. He said, Acho, he said, listen to the message, not the tone. So, what's that even mean? He was so just verbally crazy that I had to try to pick apart what he was saying because the tone was too harsh. And I realized, that didn't necessarily work for me. Because some people can't just listen to the message and not the tone. So rather than making the reader do more work, Colin, I said, let me try to package the message in a softer tone as well. And that's what I did in Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, and that's what I did in the book, along with the show, because the people are at the table, Colin, ready to be delivered a meal. I just happen to be delivering the meal. I happen to be the chef of this, one of the chefs towards racial reconciliation, not the owner.
By the way, when you first did this, the genesis of this, the day, the moment, the epiphany, when you're like, okay, I'm going to do it and I'm going to call it this, where were you? What was it, a drive? You wake up, you dream about it? Like, where did this all start?
That is a question. After the murder of George Floyd, I said, man, I have to do something. I said, I'm a sports analyst, but before I'm a sports analyst, Colin, I'm a black man. But before the world even saw me as a black man, I'm a human being. So it's my job to positively contribute to society, leave the world better than when I got here. Colin, I originally was going to call it Questions White People Have. True story. I was going to call it Questions White People Have. I was going to get 3 black people at a table, 3 white people at a table. We'll sit at this round table, Colin. The white people will reach into the fishbowl, pull out a question. They will ask it. The black people will answer. But we're in the middle of COVID, so I couldn't get anybody together. And so I said, I got to change this up. I said, timing is of the essence. You know that in sports. Everything is of the essence. I said, okay, I'll change the name to Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. I'll do it myself. The first episode, I was supposed to do it with a friend. She had a change of heart. So I was never supposed to do the first episode by myself. First episode, Colin, I'm in an all-white room, staring into the lens of a camera. It was supposed to be Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, not Uncomfortable Monologue with a Black Man. So why am I sitting there by myself? I never wanted to be. And that's just how it came. I say there's a difference between your career and your calling. Career is what you're paid for. Calling is what you're made for. This, I found out, is my calling. It called me. I just happened to pick up.
That's really well said. I'm not really interested in the sports questions, and I say that respectfully. Are you worried about Brady and the Bucks? Oh, who the hell cares? I mean, seriously, I can talk about that stuff with everybody else. I'm not really interested in that. Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, Emmanuel Acho, is. By the way, I like that you didn't judge me, because Twitter will.
Yeah.
I haven't been on it, but that you didn't judge me. You didn't even look at me harshly when I said, how dissimilar are you? Because if you said that on Twitter, I would be ravaged, but you didn't judge me when I said, how dissimilar are we? The initial take, like a minute later, I'm not smart enough to get it in real time. A minute later, I'm like, oh, that sounded stupid. But you didn't judge me on that.
Colin, the problem in our society, I would say one of the top 3 biggest problems, I'll probably put it at third, cancel culture. When somebody says something, we're so ready to cancel them that we don't give them the room or the opportunity to grow. What does that do? Not only does it not allow the person the opportunity to grow, but it makes them fearful or more timid the next time.
That we talked about this with Drew Brees. Drew Brees had earned the right to what's viewed by many as a mistake. Mm-hmm. He'd given to charity. He'd been a wonderful teammate. Gerald McCoy came on the show, and he's like, I faced him in Tampa. He was my mentor. To me, he had earned the right to make, in the eyes of his clubhouse or his locker room, a mistake. And the cancel culture, which, by the way, I think it's a little overstated. I think it's been here forever. People have been trying to cancel me for 30 years. So this idea that, like, in the 70s and 80s, I had opinions and everybody liked me. But I do think social media has amplified the force in which it's delivered and the urgency in which it's delivered.
Absolutely.
It's an avalanche.
Yeah. And that is why I think so many people are afraid to say something about anything because they don't want to be canceled. Colin, growing up, I used to play the game Minesweeper. Remember on your computer, it's right under Solitaire, like right under Hearts. I never knew how to play it, but I was bored on an airplane, so I would play Minesweeper. Colin, the objective of the game is to just kind of keep clicking around and hopefully you don't land on a mine. Yeah. And that's what I think we do in society now is like we're so fearful of landing on a mine with every word that we say that we don't even bother playing the game, except it's not really a game. It's something called life. And because people are so often afraid of clicking a verbal mine and saying the wrong thing, it's I'm just not going to say anything at all.
This is something very real. This is why 22% of America's on Twitter, and 78's not.
Yeah.
It's not because they're not interested, but or they sign up and they don't talk on it because this is the world we live in.
And that, Colin, is why I wrote the book, because I wanted to preemptively answer questions that people don't want to ask because they don't want to get canceled. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So let me try to preemptively and proactively answer questions for people who want them, who want to ask them, but might be a little bit afraid to.
This is great. You know, sports is okay. This is way better. So the book is Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, Emmanuel. Acho, there's a great picture on the back. You know how some people just look good in a suit? I mean, seriously. I mean, honestly. Some guys look great.
It's actually the Fox billboard picture.
Is it really?
Shout out to Fox. Yeah.
You didn't even pay for the suit. Free suit is better than...
Whatever, Colin.
Hey, congrats on your success.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much for taking time for us.
Pleasure's mine.
I'm Shonda Rhimes. If you've watched Grey's Anatomy or any of my TV shows, then you know I love to tell a good story. Well, now there's Shondaland Audio. We've partnered with iHeartRadio to launch a slate of great podcasts. You can listen to the first 4 right now. Katie's Crib, Criminalia, Go Ask Allie, and You Down. And we have so much more coming your way. We can't wait for you to hear it all. Welcome to Shondaland Audio. Listen to all the new Shondaland Audio shows on Apple Podcasts.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right. Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
Joy with the news.
No. Heard on the news. This is the Herdline News.
So we've talked a lot today about canceling old guys.
Saban, LeBron, we're trying to cancel Tiger. Tiger's playing great.
Phillip Rivers, Old Man Rivers, passed Dan Marino for 5th place on the all-time passing yards list.
Oh, come on, give me a break.
The Colts win last night. After the game, he described how it felt to hit that personal milestone. He said it's special. Those guys up there on that list, I don't know that I'm in their category, and that's okay, but Dan Marino was on my wall. He was a poster on my wall as a young boy. It's all just special and thankful that here at 38, I'm still getting out here and competing and playing the game that I love.
Listen, he was 30 for 39. He can drive me nuts, but there's not a lot of people in the planet in an NFL game on the road that can go 30 for 39. So, I mean, Phillip played well.
You know, I thought he was going to retire after last year.
So did I.
I was kind of surprised by this Colts move. They do have a great offensive line. They have an excellent defense.
Pittman, USC kid's pretty good.
Pittman was great last night. Naheem Hines was great last night.
Yeah, he was.
They didn't even really rely on Jonathan Taylor.
And
they haven't been for the last couple games.
Yeah, is he hurt?
No, I think they're just kind of feeling out what kind of style of running back he is.
Yeah, because Pittman last night was a big factor. Special teams and Pittman.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a questions being circulated. Phillip Rivers as a Hall of Famer. He certainly has the numbers. Obviously, we know he has no Super Bowl.
He'll get votes.
Well, I mean, he's 5th all time in passing yards, 5th all time in completions, 7th all time in attempts, 6th all time in touchdowns.
Listen, he's Eli without the rings.
And, well, yep, to your point, he also has the second most consecutive starts for a quarterback. Favre is first.
It's like Joe Buck and Troy Aikman said, though, he can be painful to watch. I mean, there are times his throwing motion.
Sometimes Eli was too, but Eli will definitely be. Now, Eli does have the 2 Super Bowls.
No, he'll get in. Eli's a Hall of Famer. He'll get in. Manning, Super Bowls, yeah. And he beat Brady twice, so there you go.
and one season was the undefeated season as well. So this week, Lamar Jackson said opposing defenses have been calling out the Ravens' plays at the line of scrimmage during games, but Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman downplayed those concerns. He's saying that has always been a part of the game.
Calling out plays on a defense is nothing new. I mean, I can talk about Ed Reed and Ray Lewis every play. They're trying to guess what play you're going to run based on what they're seeing. That's the chess match.
Yeah, I thought the media was irresponsible on this. So he said that on the Rich Eisen show. People are calling out plays. And then I watched the next day, we came on the show, and there were headlines like, ooh, he takes a shot. That's where the media's wrong. Lamar hasn't been in the league long enough. Now he's got so much film, people are calling out plays.
Right.
They're calling out Brady's plays. This is the way it works. Like, that's where the media, I thought, tried to make a story out of a random comment by a young quarterback that's happening all over the world.
What does it mean anything? What do you think, the defense doesn't watch film and prepare? Like, what does it mean?
Teddy Bruschi, I could go do 10 minutes on Teddy Bruschi stories about Peyton Manning. And how he goes, literally, it was a chess match in helmets. I would look at him, he would look at me, he would wait to call the audible until the last 8 seconds, so I couldn't call the defense, and I was throwing out words to confuse him that rhyme with Omaha. He goes, we were just staring at each other before the snap of the ball.
Everyone's trying to win. Like, this is how it goes. They play the Patriots on Sunday night, do the Ravens. They're favored by 7, according to Fox Bet. I'm kind of with you. This is a very interesting game, because I do think that Cam is gonna come out with a little, big bro.
New England
Lamar Jackson is giving him his props this week. Cam's giving him his props.
Belichick always gives young quarterbacks issues. That is a fact. Their defense is actually still good. Belichick's still great, and Cam will be inspired. The line is 7, so it's Foxborough at night. That feels this feels like an ugly 24-20 Raven win.
Yes.
That's
I could
what
see it being a lot
It
closer
will
than
not be
than
an
that
artistic
line says.
masterpiece. It'll be a mess. It'll be played mostly between the 20s.
So, The Weeknd has been chosen to headline the Super Bowl halftime show in 2021. 3-time Grammy winner posted the announcement to his social media yesterday. He said he's humbled, honored, and ecstatic to be selected for Super Bowl 55 that will take place at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa.
I'm surprised nobody ever took that name before him. It's such a great name.
It is.
I'm The Weeknd. That's when all the good concerts are.
That sounded kind of cool when he said it. Said it that way. We're not going to have concerts for a while, unfortunately, but this is exciting. He has a lot of hits, so this will be a good show, and he's very theatrical. I don't know how I'm trying to envision. Someone asked me the other day, like, what is going to go on with the Super Bowl. Like, I don't know. I don't think it'll be.
Well, it's more.
The tradition. Well, I mean, it's in Tampa. The weather will be fine. But just as far as the Super Bowl is usually a massive event.
Remember when people used to complain?
Hundreds of thousands of people in town.
People used to complain. It was so silly, like even 10 years ago. Lady Gaga, nobody cares about. And now we've all grown up, and it's like, halftime is not for you.
Right.
It's for your in-law or somebody that doesn't love football, but you're over having hamburgers and watching the Super Bowl. It should be. It is a concert for everyone, not for football fans.
Exactly. And the Super Bowl is the biggest television show of the year. That's what it is. Like, sports are a television show. Those are ratings, right? It's a television show.
Paying the bills.
And the most amount of people are watching this television show in the country. You're going to want to have some crossover, some stuff for people that aren't traditionally watching football every single weekend. And it's going to be fun. It's fun. It's a fun day. It's a fun weekend.
It's great.
Like, that's what it's for.
And if Joey and I bring our show there, we will squish your small, insignificant show.
I mean, yes, we will. Look it up.
Joey with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie
Jason
News.
McIntyre's NFL picks. He and I both stunk last week. I love my picks I think the lines this week are for people who like to bet football. Sometimes the lines 2 weeks ago we said it was a great week. This week I think the lines are there for the taking.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
On the road so much during the holidays, can't afford to have your car break down. Go to carshield.com, code HERD, 10% off, deductible may apply. Joy Taylor's joining me. Jason McIntyre, by the way, makes NFL pick. It was a bad week for both of us, but there are, and this is the reality with the NFL, there are weeks it feels better. This is one of those weeks. Let's bring him on straight fire with Jason McIntyre. He's got a podcast all the time on iHeartRadio. He is now joining me live. We call it Tomorrow's Headlines Today. He's a former newspaper guy, so he predicts what we're going to be talking about on Monday and what the headlines will be. So, lousy week for both of us last week, right?
It was a bloodbath. I've had 7 winning weeks, 1 bad, and then, last week was awful. But we're rebounding strong, Colin. Let's get excited.
All right, tomorrow's headlines today. Eagles at the Giants. What's it going to be?
Well, listen, Brett Favre came out of nowhere and hammered Carson Wentz this week. What's that all about? The headline will be Carson conquers critics, Wentz and for all. I like Carson Wentz in this spot. I know you're on the Giants. And listen, it's understandable why people are going after Wentz. His completion percentage is about 58. He's about as reliable as the news in my Facebook feed right now. Every week it's just all over the place with Carson Wentz. However, Colin, his team is getting healthy. You look at that last meeting with the Giants, and they're healthy all over the place. 2 offensive linemen are back. Miles Sanders is back, his best running back. Dallas Goedert, his best tight end. Alshon Jeffrey expected to make his debut. And Colin, that matters because if you look at the last meeting, the Eagles were 3 for 8 in the red zone. That's unacceptable. Even if you take out the kneel down at the end, they're going to be much better this week. And I know you like the Giants a lot here, but this whole Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, come on. Like, really? He's 4-0 against Washington, 1-16 against the rest of the NFL. Give me the Eagles here, Colin, favored by 3.
Tomorrow's headlines today. Bills at the Cardinals. Can't wait to watch this one. Good quarterback.
Kyler Murray's must-see TV, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I just love this guy. The headline will be Kyler building his MVP case. I like Kyler Murray in this spot. I know Buffalo's coming off an amazing victory over Seattle, but I think that was more about Seattle than Buffalo. And Kyler Murray, Colin, we've been early on him, and on this show, almost every week he becomes a topic. And I compared him to, remember how Pat Mahomes came out of nowhere, won the MVP? Yeah. Lamar Jackson, out of nowhere, wins the MVP. Yeah. Kyler Murray is the guy to watch. He is so dynamic. In space, you really can't check him. And that defense is going to get better this week. They got shredded last week by Tua. They get 2 starters back. I think they'll be able to handle Buffalo. And Kyler Murray, keep an eye on this. The Bills' best linebacker, Milano. He's their cover guy. He's like their spy. He just went on IR. Kyler Murray, by the way, who has more rushing yards this season than Alvin Kamara, is going to have another 100-yard game. I like Arizona here.
I just like watching his highlights. God, yeah. Kyler Murray is crazy. It's just crazy. Tomorrow's headlines today. 49ers at the Saints.
Yeah, well, every week there's one of these big margin games, and you're not supposed to look at the underdog, but you can't take the favorite, Colin. The headline will be, are you kidding me? I like the 49ers, Colin. I know you like this. This is one of your best bets of the season, and I'm with you. Listen, we forget about the Saints. Before this destruction of Tampa last week, this was just a good Saints team, right? Plotting against Chicago, struggling to beat Justin Herbert. They weren't great. They were great last week. And I think there's some regression this week. And I like San Francisco getting a little healthier. There's chatter that Richard Sherman may play this week. They've been so beat up. So many guys on IR. I do think the 49ers show up here on the road. And New Orleans just kind of regresses a little bit. Every time you have a big win, there is a letdown. Steelers last week, right? They beat the Ravens. Then they go to Dallas, they go through the motions, and they barely win the game.
Yeah, that was one of your better headlines. Tomorrow's headlines today, America's Game of the Week on Fox. Seahawks at the Rams.
Monster TV rating coming up. This game is phenomenal. The headline will be, Sean schools the Seahawks.
I agree.
McVay, can you give him back his genius card? You revoked it too early, Colin. Just admit it. Okay, this is a guy coming off the bye. I think it's a great spot for the Rams to really come through. And McVay has owned Carroll. Won 4 out of the last 5, Colin. The one loss was a miss by Greg the Leg at the buzzer. Yep. Or they would have won 5 straight. I want you to look at your buddy, Russell Wilson, for a sec. I know you guys have like a bromance going on, and I'm not allowed to hang out when he comes over. I get that. However, I do feel a little sorry for Russell Wilson. You know he's on track to throw the most interceptions of his career? His career high's 11. He already has 8. And, there's so much pressure on him to deliver because there's no running game, okay? The defense is a joke. They can't stop anybody through the air. The rush defense is okay, but overall, people just pass on him. And it's so much pressure on Russ to be perfect every game. If he has a turnover or two, or he's sacked 4 times, they're not winning. I think this is a really close game. Probably comes down to the final minute. I'm going to go with the Rams and Jared Goff.
Good stuff. Tomorrow's headlines today, finally. Ravens at the Patriots. I stayed away from this, but I do think Cam's going to be a little inspired here in how great Lamar is and play well. What do you got?
Yeah. I had a sportsbook director on my podcast this week, and he said this is the most lopsided game of the season from a betting perspective. The headline will be, Belichick no longer master of his craft. You like that? A little fun there? Listen, this is a Patriots team, Colin, number 1 in the NFL in defense last year. Number 1. They are 31st midway through the season. Between the COVID and the opt-outs and the injuries, they're not good right now. I know people will say, oh, Colin, they just played the Jets tough. The Jets stink, Colin. The Jets are winless. I just feel like this is a spot for Lamar and the Ravens, who, by the way, have not been great this season, okay? We watched them against the Colts last week. They didn't have 1 carry over 10 yards.
Yeah.
Like, this offense is not nearly as dynamic as they used to be, and I just think this is a spot where the Ravens finally open up. I'm hesitant to put any big money here. I'm not going to put my kids' college tuition fund on the Ravens against Belichick as a 7-point dog at home. But I do think the Ravens come through here and get a victory. The Patriots just aren't good. We can admit that now, right?
Yeah, McIntyre's got his show on Fox Sports Radio tomorrow morning, 10 to 1 Eastern. Good seeing you, buddy.
All right, pal. See ya.
You faced a lot of opponents over the years. There's one opponent we all face is age. Start your morning with M-Drive Start. It is 1 scoop every morning. Protein, vitamins, minerals, elite nutrition. Don't let age define you. Try it at mdrivestart.com. 1 scoop every morning. It's interesting about the Lamar was so good early, he's now a victim of it, right? Like, now everybody's judging him. With Kyler Murray, he was good early but not special, and we accept his gradual improvement. But the truth is Arizona and Baltimore still give you 27 points a weekend. But, when you're good early, the expectations go through the roof. Whereas, like Kyler they won 5 games his first year. They were last place. And then this year, first couple of games. It's the trajectory. Now we all love Kyler. We all think Lamar stinks. And the truth is, in any one game, it's a coin flip. They're both great. All right, for Joy and John and everybody here, the book again, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, Emmanuel Acho. Go buy it. It's smart. He is too. Speak for yourselves around the corner.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at stuffyoushouldknow.com.
Now that is true.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is Stuff You Should Know. You Know, the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at stuffyoushouldknow.com or wherever